There's something magical about the movies that I just love.
Hollywood invented America to the world in the old days.
And as a medium, it's really powerful. But for some, that power isn't used for good.
Our way of life is being censored by the Chinese Communist Party.
For NTD, right here in Sunset Boulevard, in the heart of Hollywood, for the premiere screening of this fantastic, powerful, insightful, and impactful documentary film, Hollywood Takeover, a must-watch and an NTD Original Documentary film. Hollywood is the epicenter of the entertainment industry. For decades, it has captured the imagination of people through powerful storytelling on our theater screens. But behind this lies the dark and disturbing secret, that of dictatorship, control, abuse of power, huge amounts of money, where big titans, Hollywood studios such as Disney, Marvel, Sony, have actually started to self-censor and put out movies under the influence of other big titans. Why? I am talking about the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese regime, with their huge economic leverage, have started to dictate the narrative and even change scripts and create characters in order to further their cause and the mentality of the people that watch their films. They have molded the narrative and caused big Hollywood studios to self-censor in order to please and appease the Chinese government. Today, this groundbreaking documentary, Hollywood Takeover, exposes exactly that. They will be talking to big titans in the entertainment industry, national security people, and exposing what is actually going on in Hollywood. So I'm here with Kevin Sorbo, highly accomplished actor, producer, director with over 150 acting credits, 5 director credits, Life of Christ, Life of the Antichrist recently, wasn't that last year?
It was. That came out. That one came out, and we also had Miracle in East Texas. So I got to direct both of them as well, and we had theatrical runs in both of them, and they're wonderful movies. Check them out.
Fantastic. Go check those out. Now, Kevin, you were one of the contributors for this eye-opening, absolutely powerful Hollywood Takeover documentary. In it, you said basically Chinese regime is buying out all the movie theaters in America and influencing and basically infiltrating. Share your thoughts with us about that.
Well, I mean, they own the NBA. They've been buying up farmland like crazy. We got a lot of these Chinese immigrants coming across our border as well. They've been documenting that. So we're like, oh, look at what's going on. But it doesn't surprise me of what they're doing. And Hollywood is bending over backward to appease them at the same time, because I love how Hollywood, the hypocrisy kind of shines through. They talk about, well, socialism is a good thing. They're still a capitalist business, right? So they look at the big money that's over there in China, they look at the big audience that's over there, and China's telling them what to do. And they're owning everything that's coming out of Hollywood right now. And people, you know, to me, this...
It's crazy that they're saying, listen, put this character in there. Yeah. And put this Beijing location in there, and then we'll let your film air in our 1.4 billion pound market.
Yeah, and they're doing it. And, you know, part of me says, okay, I understand it, but at the same time, how much money do we own them? Because our national debt is through the roof right now, and they own most of it. We owe them a lot of money, so they have the power to tell us what to do here. And Hollywood's bending over backwards, and so, unfortunately, so is Washington, D.C.
And why should people watch this documentary? What can people do?
Learn. I did another documentary called Climate Hustle 2. Amazon won't show it because, God forbid, we show the opposite point of view. Why can't we let people just look at this and they can decide for themselves what they want to believe in or not? This is a wonderful documentary. It's got some amazing people that have far more knowledge about what's going on the political side and the financial side of the economies of America and China, and it's educational. Just see it. You can make up your mind. It's not there to brainwash you or force you to do something.
Because we all watch movies and we don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
No, all the time. Please go watch Hollywood Takeover. This is a very educational look at what's really going on behind the scenes, what China's doing to manipulate everything that's happening here in Hollywood and Tinseltown. So just check it out and decide for yourself what you want to believe in or what you don't want to believe in. Just check it out.
So I'm here with very, very accomplished actress Sam Sorbo, and you're here with your husband, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah, congratulations on featuring in this documentary and contributing. You've also been an Andromeda, Hercules. You have a very, very illustrious career in television and film.
Yeah, it's been good. I'm more proud of the film that I've done, but the television's been fun too.
What is the film? Is that the Texas film?
The Miracle in East Texas, but really Let There Be Light is my favorite piece because I wrote it, and so it means a lot to me.
Fantastic, congratulations. Thank you. Now, this is a really powerful, disturbing film, isn't it, Sam? In that you very candidly say that the Chinese regime is a cancer, isn't it, in Hollywood?
Well, I think that the ideology that is represented by the Chinese regime is a cancer, and it destroys the brains of the people, of its hosts, which is very sad. But that's its intention, and the fact that we are unaware of that almost implies that we've been infected.
So why should people see this film?
Well, I think people don't like to be fooled, and this film actually shows people how they are being fooled, and so it gives them power to understand the propaganda and to avoid being sucked in.
So I'm here now with Chris Fenton, who's a contributor for this documentary, Hollywood Takeover. Now, you are a business leader, you are a Hollywood executive, you're a published author, you've achieved a lot. You have also been known as the diplomat or fixer for the Chinese regime and Hollywood studios when you were president of DMG Entertainment, and you were with them for over 17 years.
Yeah, it was quite a run. I mean, I always talk about it being a little bit like a throwback to that movie Gung Ho, where I was sort of Michael Keaton and the Japanese took over his automobile factory. Well, I had a company that the Chinese ended up buying, and then I was thrust into this world between the U.S. and China, and had to learn a lot of stuff really quickly. And it was right in the middle of Hollywood's first real entree into the business, and it was quite fantastic sort of being a part of that. But then to look back about it, we saw a lot of the things that we were doing wrong, and this is what's really spectacular about this film. It talks about the things that in hindsight we can look back at and learn, and hopefully pave a good path forward with.
So Chris, how did this partnership start? Why did the Chinese regime start casting their net on Hollywood?
Well, I think if you look at how the Chinese Communist Party works and how the standing committee that Xi Jinping runs, and at the time it was Hu Jintao in the early days, they use a lot of propaganda to essentially get their 1.4 billion people just happy enough that they don't revolt. They don't want another Tiananmen Square incident. So part of that is giving those people as much as they can tangibly to make their lives better. But also part of it is having them believe in the system of government that is ruling them to make sure that they feel like they're getting taken care of. So that's where propaganda comes into play, because maybe they don't have all the things that they want or need for their families to be happy, but if they feel like they can aspire to a higher level of living and living conditions there, that works. And that's what propaganda does. It allows the people where they can't necessarily have things that are tangible in their lives, but they can feel like they can get there someday. So propaganda is really strong, and when you look at the power of movies, the way that they engage people emotionally, get them to cry, get them to laugh, get them to feel good, get them to escape. Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party, and he was coming in around 2012, realized if they could figure out the mastery of how to make world-class films themselves for their people, they could really master the art of messaging inside a movie theater.
Now, you talked about Iron Man 3. Now, that was a big example of what you're saying here, isn't it? Where Robert Downey Jr. had a character was created, Dr. Wu. Tell us about that.
Well, the Dr. Wu character was actually a minimal version of what we really wanted to do, at least in terms of trying to make a lot of money in China. We actually went so far, and this is why Kevin Feige, who ran Marvel, was such a good American in a lot of ways, because he really protected the Marvel universe and protected what was important about that intellectual property, and he wouldn't let us get away with a lot of stuff we wanted to do. But originally, there's a kid in the movie that sort of saves Tony Stark as he's going through the frozen snow of middle America. And we dug up the old story of Xi Jinping and how he lived in Iowa for a handful of weeks trying to learn about middle America. So we thought it would have been really interesting in the movie to have that kid be Chinese in the middle of America, right? And he would have a Chinese dad who happened to be there from, the Chinese government, essentially researching how United States of America works. Well, the beauty was Marvel said, wait a minute, that makes no sense. That could have never happened. And we were like, it actually did happen. And the guy that's about to take over running the country from Hu Jintao is Xi Jinping, and he did it. So if we actually do that in the movie, we will make hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, the beauty of Marvel and Kevin Feige at the time is he said, no, we're not doing that. That's kowtowing way too much. Our fanboys and our fan base is not going to be happy with it, and it just feels wrong. So then we came up with a compromise of this Dr. Wu character, who's not nearly in the movie as much as what that kid was, but he represents science and technology and the advancement of medicine in China, and that was something symbolically that the Beijing government really wanted us to have.
Now, why should people go and see this documentary, Chris?
Well, I'm looking at the cast, and I'm going, this guy is probably the least charismatic and movie star on there. I see real actors on there and real experts, but I think I was a little nervous about the movie being, too red meat or too partisan or too anti-China, and I actually felt like it was a fair look. It almost felt a little like my book, where I'm placing blame on myself. I'm saying we believed in something that turned out not to be the reality, and now we need to look back at it and figure out how to fix it. And what was great about the movie is it does sort of the same thing, and then it actually leaves us on a relatively uplifting note, which is showcasing, like you said, Spider-Man, or I think we talked about Doctor Strange, and a handful of other movies, Top Gun, where you started to see studios push back, and you're starting to see filmmakers push back, and you're starting to see this idea that, you know what, we're not going to do everything you're asking us to do. Like, there are certain limits. We're not going to be reckless with our form of capitalism, but we also don't want to go to war, and we want to make some money off of you as a market. So I feel like it was a fair look. The one issue that I always think is very sensitive when it comes to talking about China and talking fairly about China is some people look at things or listen to things in a certain sort of bubble, and they'll believe, oh, he's saying we should go to war, we hate the Chinese, blah, 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 blah. That is never the way I am, and I don't think that's the way a lot of the people talk constructively about this relationship that we're going to have for the rest of time. China's not going anywhere, nor are we. So we need to figure out a constructive path forward, and one that, quite frankly, since I have two 17-year-olds, one that they're going to be able to coexist in, without kinetic conflict.
So I'm here now with Tiffany Meier, investigative reporter for NTD, also China in Focus, and also the host and the producer of this fantastic documentary, which is here screening in Hollywood, the Hollywood Takeover. Hi, Tiffany.
Hello, great to be with you.
Yeah, so congratulations on this. Tiffany, tell us now, this is a really impactful, powerful expose of Hollywood and what really goes on in the entertainment industry. Can you expand on that and what this documentary was about and the journey of you making this?
Yes, so as you mentioned, it's very expansive. I think a lot of people already know that China has influence in Hollywood, but maybe they don't know the extent or what's at stake here. So we really lay out how art is part of China's military strategy, not just in America. We think of freedom of expression, freedom of the arts, but since Mao Zedong in the very beginning of communist China, they've used that as part of the cause of the party, of the state, and even now under Xi Jinping, the current chairman of the Communist Party, you have that in the internal PLA, or People's Liberation Army, China's military, part of their internal handbook, that the battle for mind control happens on a smokeless battlefield, happens on the ideological front. So for them, this is really part of how they will take over the free world. And Hollywood, because movies cost a lot, they're like, ooh, we can have a joint venture, great, we're gonna get a lot of funding. But then with that joint venture, then you had to get past the Chinese censors. And so then for years, we've had stories and scripts being changed just so that it can get some of that money and get into the Chinese market. But then what is the impact, right? Since 2012, you have no major studio having a major movie with the villain being China. it's always Russia or North Korea. Even like Red Dawn 2, it became North Korea, and even the characters in the film are like, North Korea? Even the characters are like, how is that possible? But then with that, you start seeing through the movies that communist China is the hero, and you don't hear the stories of the Chinese people who are suffering in China. You don't get a glimpse of that. And then in America, especially now, you have the rise of socialism in popularity, especially among the young children. They're like, oh my gosh, this is so great, because you don't get those stories. And so that's really what's at stake here.
So they are, I mean, obviously they sold their soul in order to tap into that. Is it 1.4 billion people market, which is huge for box office, very lucrative.
Right, so for example, Pacific Rim, this movie that came out a couple years ago, maybe over a decade ago, it had a budget of $190 million. In the North American markets, it made just over $100 million, so it's losing money. But in China alone, it made $111 million. So just by getting that film into the Chinese market, it doubled its box office profits. So other theaters, other studios, the film executives look at that and they're like, oh my gosh, like it doesn't matter if we don't do well in America as long as we can get into the Chinese market.
That comes with a high cost, doesn't it? And what is that high cost?
Our freedoms, our everything. We gave up human rights, democracy, standing up for the voiceless, whether it's, Tiananmen Square, the students that died there, Tibet, Taiwan, Hong Kong, all these issues that normally you would see America standing up for. Now, because of money, you don't hear those stories. I think the most obvious would be Top Gun Maverick. In 2019, the international trailer, you notice that 2 patches are missing on Tom Cruise's famous jacket. Those are the Taiwanese and Japanese flags because it's very sensitive to communist China.
So they basically ordered that they be taken out unless, if they want to air the movie in the Chinese market, correct?
That one was an example of where it got to the point where China didn't have to say anything and studios were self-censoring in preparation to try and get into the market. And part of that was because this massive Chinese tech giant called Tencent was funding part of the movie. But because of the international backlash, everything shut down for COVID, movies were delayed anyways, you could make changes. Tencent backed out, the patches were put back in. I mean, that was such a patriotic movie, it was never getting into China anyway. There's no way the Chinese censors were like, yeah, let's watch Americans' elite fighters, there's no way that was getting in. So the patches were put back, but some people are pointing out that no matter how patriotic that film is, you don't really know who the enemy is, and based on the location, it could be Russia, it could maybe be Iran, or it could be China, based on the geography. So it is interesting that the enemy isn't explicitly named. But that aside, the movie was pretty patriotic, and it made over $1 billion without the China market. And that's the first Tom Cruise movie to make over $1 billion. So
there's a great pushback happening.
Yeah, so you have people like Kay Rubacek. I think she's on the poster, but she's in the documentary, and she's saying that Americans and people in general are voting with their dollars. So they're like, Top Gun, people saw it, they loved it, they told their friends to go see it. Maybe they saw it twice, so it's like they're voting with their dollars, whereas like a lot of the films that have been changed because of Chinese communist censors, people watch it, they're like, what is this? And then they don't do that well. Maybe they do well in the China market, but in America they don't, and that's also a message that people are sending.
So tell us about this documentary. Why should people see it?
I think if you want to know what's happening in the world and why a lot of things are the way they are, this is a great place, because Communist China really knows that if you control the culture, then eventually you control politics, because it's what they call soft power, right? So you can influence the way people think, as we were talking about earlier, emotion. You feel a certain way, you start seeing Communist China as a hero. Eventually, when it comes time to vote, you're looking at candidates and their stances, you're like, oh, this person is soft on China, sounds great, and then you don't realize.
Brainwashing, isn't it?
It is. You have Roger Simon literally saying that this is a type of brainwashing and people aren't aware of what is happening to them. And it comes back to culture.
So people need to go and see this documentary because it's eye-opening.
I think it really is, and it also sheds light on, as you were talking about earlier, the internal Chinese documents and the communist history that ties into that to really give a more rounded look, not just what's happening here in America, but why it ties into China's military and hegemonic ambitions.
Well, congratulations on such a fantastic, eye-opening, impactful, powerful documentary. Where can people watch this? There's a release on Epoch TV, is that right, on the 8th of March?
Yes, so Epic TV will be globally, probably not in China, but otherwise you can watch it on Epic TV. Or if you go to HollywoodTakeover.com right now, you can check out the trailer and some little behind the scenes clips.
And how can people support this documentary and spread the word?
At the end of it, if you watch the whole thing, there's a QR code. Otherwise, just send the link to people, tell them to go to Epic TV or HollywoodTakeover.com, probably easier. Epic TV has a lot, so.
And how can people watch China in Focus? Where can they watch that and watch you bringing the true stories, the reality out of China?
So you can watch a short version every day on YouTube on China in Focus, or if you go to epochtv.com, you can watch the full episode every day.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, and congratulations again.
Thank you so much.
So I'm here with Stephen Yates, who was one of the contributors of this fantastic eye-opening documentary, Hollywood Takeover. Hello, Stephen.
Hello, it's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, well, now you are one of the experts in national security, aren't you? You were a national security advisor for ex-presidents. Tell us about your role and your background.
Well, I started out as a missionary in Taiwan. I worked for the intelligence services of the United States, spent some time as a think tank in the White House, in politics, sort of like everyone else, just rolling from job to job. But my passion has been for studying classical Chinese and classical Chinese civilization, and most of my career has been spent dealing with the malign influences of the Chinese Communist Party.
So tell us, what are those influences? We heard earlier from Casey, who's also in intelligence, that it's all very insidious, isn't it? It's all very subtle, but the infiltration, it's almost like roots spreading.
Well, it's one of those situations where Americans have somewhat of a missionary impulse where we want to see the glass half full, we want to see the opportunity and be creative and entrepreneurial. I think that's beautiful. We should celebrate that. The Chinese Communist Party has never been in love with the United States, and it is arguably been in a Cold War with us the whole time we've had this engagement policy. And then the malign influences stretch from things covered in this documentary and entertainment, film, and information warfare to cultural warfare on our universities, the compromising of our markets, the attack on American institutions, and especially the American family. I lost my daughter to fentanyl poisoning in October last year. It is, I think, one of the greatest attacks on the American family. It is directly a malign influence of the Chinese Communist Party. And so I think we have to begin with important documentaries like this for people to meet in our cultural space and see where the manipulation is occurring before we can begin to do the right things at home and maybe challenge China to be better and encourage the Chinese people about a future beyond the Communist Party.
I mean, first and foremost, the victims are the Chinese people. They suffer in silence, don't they?
Very much so, and I think that's one of the things that Epoch Times and New Tang Dynasty does very, very importantly, is to be a voice for those who don't have a voice, be a platform for those that have no platform inside of China. We have this imbalance of the Chinese Communist Party having, I think, undue influence in American culture, and there's no reciprocity. We don't have films that go into China that challenge the dominant narrative there. You can't even post a protest cartoon of Winnie the Pooh in China without them coming after you. And so there's no Babylon Bee in China that is satirizing things the way we live within the United States and Western civilization.
It's world domination. That's what the CCP is seeking, isn't it?
It's control. And they can't win by being better, so they have to take a great civilization down to allow a lesser form of government. After all, it's not even a Chinese form of government. This is a failed European ideology that took root as a revolution inside China. So it's not even Chinese in my view.
So now how can we stop this? Do documentaries like this help? What are your suggestions? I mean, you're a national security advisor. You advise on policies. What are your thoughts on how to root this out?
Well, I think it is vital that we begin with telling the truth. In any time you have a sick patient, you begin with a diagnosis, and then you begin prescribing with the manageable symptoms. And so I think we've had a sick patient in the United States. We've become sick because we've become overly addicted to things that come from China, overly dependent upon things that come from China. And I think COVID, fentanyl, job loss, other things have challenged and awakened people where they now don't want that to be the way forward. And now they're hungry for what do we do. So documentaries like this help us understand it's not just ships bumping at the high seas or airplanes bumping in the Asia Pacific. there is an unrestricted warfare going on inside the United States. And if we can get the film industry to fall back in love with America and what makes America beautiful and a change agent for good in the world, that makes the risk of trying to push those changes in Asia less. And I think the odds of success better. So that's where I think this is an investment in that brighter path.
So I'm here with Jason Jones, film producer, film buff, and also a contributor on this amazing eye-opening documentary, Hollywood Takeover. Hi, Jason.
It's good to see you, and I'm glad you said film buff, because that's the most important thing. I'm a film buff, yes.
Wow. Now, Jason, tell us about your kind of input on this documentary.
Yeah, I think I come from a unique place. I run a human rights organization, the Vulnerable People Project. We run influence campaigns for ethnic and religious minorities facing genocide. And through my work over the past 20 years, I bump into the CCP. And the CCP bumps into me, actually, from time to time. But I'm also a filmmaker, and I've had some success as a filmmaker. And
where can people watch your films? Please give a shout out.
Okay, my latest movie, Divided Hearts of America, was just on Fox Nation, but now it's on Amazon and it's everywhere. And my other film's Bella, which is probably the one I'm most proud of. It won the Toronto Film Festival in 2007.
Wow, you're an award winner
Stoning
then.
of Soraya M. won the NAACP Image Award.
Watch these, don't miss them.
Yeah, and I have a short film I made with Patty Millette, Justin Bieber's mother, called Crescendo, and we put it on YouTube for the world to see for free. So you can watch Crescendo on YouTube, Sing a Little Louder's on YouTube, Stoning of Soraya, Bella, Voiceless, are all on Amazon. Sometimes they're on, I never know what's on Netflix, you know.
Film buff absolutely is the epitome of you then.
I love movies. No, I go see movies in the theater every week since I was a little boy.
So tell us about, what is it about this documentary that really hit hard for you?
Well, here's the reality, okay? The CCP is running the largest influence campaign in history, and it's inescapable. So you sit down with your family to watch a Disney movie. You put on Mulan. The CCP has said, their generals have said, it's public record, that the biggest threat to the CCP, they believe, is the Uyghur issue. It's the greatest ethnic cleansing and genocide since the Holocaust. You have at least 3 million Uyghur in concentration camps, slave labor, organ harvesting, forced abortions, unspeakable evil.
Horrible human rights violations still going on and concealed.
Still going on and concealed and covered up and justified by Disney. So the CCP has said in public record that they have to make the Uyghur the villains and the CCP the victim. Then Disney makes a movie, Mulan, the live action movie, that paints a caricature of the Uyghur that's grotesque. And it reminds you of the propaganda that the Nazis painted of the Jews. But this is Disney. You have sets within eyeshot of concentration camps. So imagine if in 1942 or 1943 you had movies made in Germany and the Jews were the villains and the Nazis were the heroes, and Disney was shooting this in eyeshot of Sachsenhausen. That's what is happening. We're having a cultural revolution in the United States. What we need to do, and this is where I'm confident, Hollywood is key to helping China recover from the Cultural Revolution, which was one of the greatest catastrophes in history. You had the CCP commit ethnic cleansing against the Han Chinese, obliterating their culture, their history, their memory. And how can we recover that? Storytelling. So can Chinese filmmakers tell those stories in China? No. In Hong Kong now? No. So you would hope that Los Angeles, the film industry in the United States, would be a place where these stories could be told.
So why should people go and see this documentary? Tell us, Jason.
Well, number one reason, you need to know how you're being influenced. Like, you are being influenced. Very sophisticated campaigns are designed to influence your opinions on important things of policy where only the United States of America can have impact. But then even more important than that, our children are being impacted. Their moral imaginations are being obliterated. Their ability to live healthy and happy and normal lives is being undermined by design to weaken our regime. They're weakening your children. They're weakening our children by design, breaking them down. If fentanyl's not killing them, TikTok is destroying their imagination. It's obliterating their moral imagination. So you watch this film, you subscribe to Epoch Times, and you'll have the tools that you need. So this is a very important movie. This is to know what's going on, and this is a very important. By the way, I would say a very courageous film, and everyone in this film is very courageous, because there's more to fear than just having your careers or your projects tanked.
So I'm here now with Casey Flemings, CEO of Black Ops. Hello, Casey.
Hello.
Now, you are one of the contributors of this fantastic, powerful documentary, Hollywood Takeover.
That's correct.
Tell us about what this documentary was for you. Like, what was it like making this?
It was enjoyable because it gets the word out, it gets the truth out to the people, and they understand really what's going on in Hollywood and the subversion that's going on by the Chinese Communist Party. Most Americans are not aware of it. So when the truth comes out and you're able to connect the dots, that's what was exciting about it.
Now, you did say in the documentary that, typically people think you're either at war or not war. Americans do. But what's going on behind the scenes, like now, is another type of warfare, isn't it? Without bullets. It's control, it's dictatorship, it's controlling, infiltrating. That was kind of your sentiment in the documentary, wasn't it?
It's actually the fact in the documentary. So yes, this is everything short of conventional war to weaken your enemy. It's called unrestricted warfare. So it's everything that we're seeing today to unwind our society, weaken us as an enemy for takeover. So that's really what's going on. And so if we can connect those dots for people, that's the most important thing.
Now, can you just tell us, why should people go and see this film?
Because it's an hour long, because you got nothing better to do, and it'll open your eyes. It's, like I said, I've said it 4 or 5 times, it connects the dots that nobody's connecting for you, because mainstream media is not going to connect it for you, your federal government's not to connect it for you, people like the Epic Times and NTD connect those dots for you. And that's why you want to see it. It's one of the best hours you can do of your time. If you have family, if you have children, if you have loved ones, it's worth an hour.
So I'm here now with Chris Toto, Hit on Toto, right? Isn't that your creation?
Oh, Hollywood in Toto. So.
Hollywood in Toto. Award-winning journalist, you have your podcast, and you're a contributor for this amazing Hollywood Takeover.
Yeah, I was excited to join this whole project. I mean, this is a great topic. It's an important topic, and I think it's not covered by most media outlets, and I think it should be explored. And I think that when it comes to Hollywood, I'm a free speech guy. I mean, it's about telling the stories we want to tell, and about probing different areas and investigating. And I think what's happening with the U.S.-China relationship, it curtails that. It makes it impossible to do certain things, to tell certain stories. So I want to investigate that.
So I mean, with film, entertainment industry, who would have thought that Hollywood studios like Disney, Marvel, would sell their souls to the Chinese regime? Basically, that's it, isn't it, Chris? In order to make billions of dollars for their movies and tap into that 1.4 billion market and the box office hits.
It sounds over the top, and yet there it is. It's what they're doing. They're changing their stories, they're adding scenes, they're taking scenes out, they're manipulating how the stories end and begin. All in a way to kind of placate that marketplace. And in a raw capitalistic perspective, you could understand that, but this is Hollywood, this is the dream factory. This is American products, and these are great stories, and you don't want to limit those stories. And Hollywood is always talking about, speaking truth to power, and we want to stand up for the little guy, but then when they get the chance to do just that, they don't. So
I'm here with director, writer, and editor Penny Zhu for Hollywood Takeover at this premiere. Hello.
Hi, nice.
Hi, Penny. Many congratulations on such a fantastic and powerful documentary film here today.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
So tell us, what is it that set you on this journey to tell this story?
So initially before I was doing documentaries, I worked as a reporter and mostly focused on China news. So we cover a lot about like Chinese business, Chinese economy, and human rights stories in China, and of course how the story about how China actually started to infiltrate American film industry we came across a lot of stories about that. Like, for example, in 2020, we have this news story about Top Gun Maverick trying to remove the Taiwanese and Japanese flag from Maverick's jacket.
And that was actually in the documentary, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was in the documentary. We mentioned about that. And so we're just seeing a lot of cases like this, and it's also how, like, in the movie Mulan, like Disney's remade of live-action Mulan, they tried to like the leading actor, like Mulan, the actress for Mulan, she was actually a supporter for Hong Kong police, which is like actually oppressing the Hong Kong protesters. So we're seeing a lot of cases like this, and though we dived into it and made a lot more research and realized like this thing actually goes way back. And and then that's how we started to like talk to people in the industry and realize this is like a big story and start to make this story, and also did our research about the CCP's view on art, which is also we discussed.
It's a tool for politics. We saw that today in the documentary.
Exactly, like how CCP leaders were saying themselves, like we don't see arts as arts, like arts are subordinate to politics, and it's a tool that we can use to subvert other nations to conquer our national enemy. So yeah, that's how we did the story. Yeah.
So in a nutshell, the film is really about the Chinese Communist Party infiltrating Hollywood through movie studios in order to get them to come over for their 1.4 billion box office, massive, huge budgets, isn't it that?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, it's like, as the panelists were talking about it too, it's the Chinese side and it's also the American side, right? The Chinese side see this opportunity to use media, to use entertainment to achieve their agenda, like the CCP's agenda. Ultimately, we know it's like global domination, but they do it step by step, right? They do it through Wall Street, they do it through the education system, they also do it through films and narratives. And our films talks about the films and narrative side, but it's also the American side, right? As this is the story of our protagonist in the film, Chris Fenton, right? He thought it's going to be a good thing to bridge kind of the two cultures and bring in the Chinese elements into Hollywood movies, as well as bring Hollywood movies into China, but it was taken advantage of by the CCP. And also over the years, the American film industry got kind of like blinded by the Chinese funding and Chinese money and started to lose their way. And they were willing to do anything to change the script to not make the Chinese Communist Party angry. And like gradually they lost their way. Yeah.
Now, what are you hoping to achieve with this documentary film? What do you want people to go away and think about and do?
Mm-hmm. I think basically, for general public, I do want people to understand like what this Chinese Communist Party's true nature is like. And I mean, we always try to separate the Chinese Communist Party from the Chinese people, because the party, as some of the panelists discussed, is a political party. It's not an ethnicity, right? It's not a nationality even. And the Chinese people are actually the biggest victims of the Chinese Communist Party because of the horrendous human rights abuses happening in China. So we do want people to know through this film that what the Chinese Communist Party's true nature is, and also how it's actually been infiltrating the U.S. and it's brainwashing the U.S. It's changing the way Americans are thinking. It's not just doing its thing in China, but also here in America. That's something that we want people to know. And also, I guess, because our documentary is about films and filmmakers, I hope that the filmmakers who watch this film would better fulfill their social responsibility to the American public and stay truthful, tell truthful stories, and maintain their integrity and not be compromised by money. I mean, truthful in a way of not as in the sense of nonfiction instead of fiction, but truthful as in the way of not misleading the
show the reality.
Show the reality. Show what China is really like. Show what Chinese Communist Party is really like, and yeah, don't be swayed by political or economic influences.
Now, where can people watch this film? The big release on Epoch TV, isn't there, on March the 8th?
Yes, so we're releasing this film on March the 8th, this Friday on Epoch TV, and that's so far, right now, that's the only place you can watch it. So you have to subscribe to the Epoch TV in order to watch this film. And we do recommend you subscribe and share this film to your family and friends and help us raise awareness of this issue.
So I'm here with Muro, who's just watched Hollywood Takeover. Hello.
Hi, how are you, Ruby?
Good, thank you. Now tell us, this was a really insightful, powerful film, wasn't it?
Oh, it absolutely was. I got to tell you, Ruby, I left this whole thing kind of mad. I mean, I feel like, first off, after I heard a lot of the facts, on how these movies were making, $20 million here in the United States, but over in China, suddenly they're able to make $700 million on these films. It makes sense that, hey, if I'm selling something and I can make multiple times more over here, I'm going to cater my message to what this customer wants and not the customer that's paying less. And so it makes sense that the CCP now would have that advantage of being able to now mold the minds of Americans away from the beauty of America and what this country stands for and what it's founded on, the principles, and turning that into a dirty thing and turning Americans against America. And when you take a look at what's happening in China today with the citizens there and how they've been oppressed by the CCP, that's coming here. I've got kids. I don't want my kids to be oppressed in that way. I don't want my kids to, because of their beliefs, be threatened to have their organs taken away. I don't want that to happen to my grandkids. I certainly don't want it to happen to me either. But we're sitting around willy-nilly. And it seems like nobody, I hear a lot of talk, but I don't see a lot of action. And meanwhile, it's getting worse. It's not the first time this has happened in Hollywood. We have this thing called World War II, and we saw the lead up in World War II and what was happening in Hollywood. We had a huge communist faction here. The Communist Party USA was a huge influence on Hollywood during that time. And the movies that were coming out of Hollywood ahead of World War II were propping up the Soviet Union and what they were able to do. Look at the movie Casablanca, for example, where you've got Humphrey Bogart bragging about what the Soviet Union was doing to save the day in Spain. Come on. These are the brainwashed. This Hollywood apparatus has been used to brainwash Americans for decades now. When are we going to put our foot down and say enough is enough? What I heard Sam Sorbo say was that, hey, people are selling out for the almighty dollar, and they're selling out their morality and their integrity. And when I see the kind of money that we talked about earlier, this is mega money, it brings me back to how are we going to be able to compete against that kind of money? And the fact is, we need people to love America. And the sense that I got out of it, and really was reiterated through the panel afterwards, is that we've got to teach young people how to love this all great country that we live in right now. If we don't be scared
and not be scared to tell a message.
That's right.
The studios are scared, aren't they?
Well, they are, and not only studios are scared. People are scared to talk to their family members anymore. People are afraid to actually come out because they might get criticized, and I think we need to get over that. We need to get over all of this stuff. The bigotry thing. We need to get over that. I love what Casey Fleming said from Black Ops Partners during the panel, was that we're not black, we're not white, we're not this religion or that religion, we're Americans. Let's get back to the thing that we all have in common. We're Americans, and let's tell the American story. That's what Hollywood should be doing every day.
It's actually very entertaining. I promise it's not boring, and it's vitally important. In fact, I think the timing of this preview is really important. Yesterday was the primaries, right? We as American citizens, we actually all went out and we voted. So as an American citizen, I see this as an extension of our obligation to watch this and to make sure that we're educating ourselves so that people understand what's actually happening in this country.
I've known for a long time. That's why I'm here, because we're fighting just like they are against this. That's why I became an independent producer. I worked for a production company. I was one of the readers of coverage, and I became VP of the production company. But in reality, they wanted to do movies about bad things, and I didn't. And so I left because I want to do films that actually have a message, that help people, that entertain people, that bring joy, comedies, fun, and education too. And that's why I'm doing all of this. Seeing the suffering of the Chinese people was very upsetting to me, because I don't want that. And we're supposed to be taking care of each other on this earth. And for the people that are hurting people, we all need to fight together, and I believe that. That's the American way. I'm proud to be an American. I really am. But we love everybody. We just don't want others hurt. And we're willing to fight for it, right? You have to open your mind to see what the facts are. People have been brainwashed from, fake media, all kinds of information. They need to know the truth. And the truth is they spent a lot of time in this documentary, and it's very important for people to see.
Well, my daughter, I brought her here because she's going into the entertainment industry. She just finished filming her short, and I thought it would be a nice segue for her to understand really what's happening in the Hollywood entertainment industry. And I thought with her age, she's 22, she can bring some kind of insight to her age group. And I just felt like it's, I love the panelists. So I thought they would enlighten her, to go to the next level and see how she writes and how she impacts, her own age group. So I think what is important is to teach and educate our children of the reality of culture wars, of division, divide and conquer, all that type of stuff. I think it's really critical, and I think this movie brought some insight and brought some intelligent conversations. And it's really leaving the question mark. It's making you feel like this is something that needs to be told. Like they said, I grew up with stories being told and passed on from generation to generation. So that's my culture. That's what I tell my girls. So I think the beauty of it is it's not fabrication. It's the beauty of handing down and passing on your genealogy or where you came from. So it's very valuable to really teach our kids the truth and that's what matters really, so it's beautiful. Really loved it.
This documentary was absolutely epic, of course, and it was a lot more than I had anticipated. It was so eye-opening listening to everybody's experiences, and it needs to be shared with the world because the average American has no clue what's going on. And I'm very well versed in news. I watch it every day like a religion, and this was so shocking to me of what's really going on, about what's going on in the world. This is a big eye-opener, and it was probably one of the best films I've seen ever. And I congratulate everybody that was involved.
Hi, my name is Alessandra Vergara. I'm 17 years old. So I really thought that this film a lot of people should see it more, especially everyone my age, because we are the new generation and we are the ones who are raising new kids to have intellectual mind.
Everybody needs to watch this movie. This movie is so imperative, especially for our younger generations, because we don't know what war that we're in right now. We think we're just going on TikTok or we're going on apps like, can I name apps? Sorry. Tamu and Wish, and we're supporting actually the CCP doing that.
Being a filmmaker, it kind of came close to my heart because I would never agree to do anything or change anything that's part of my artistic vision. So it gave me a lot to think about, with what I'm doing with the work that's in front of me.
This film was I loved it. I can't wait to tell everybody to watch it.
I would say you have to support people that create documentaries like this. I think you got to support Epoch. You got to support other filmmakers and other storytellers that are out there because that's how you change this. You get behind people that are creating culture and putting positive message out into the American public. So I would say you got to subscribe to these kinds of things because nothing changes unless there's a financial backing of positive messages like this. Yes, you guys should check out Hollywood Takeover, 100%. It's a great film.
I think this documentary was so informative, so riveting. This is so positive. We need this information out there and everybody should watch it.
I believe it's so important for people to watch this documentary just to get an idea of what is going on, what the CCP has done, and what they're in progress with, and what they're continuing to do, and their goals. And it's very important for us and for our family and for our future generations to know all of that.
So why should people go and see this film?
It tells the truth. It tells the truth. And
it tells the truth.
Honest people want to know the truth. They want to know the truth. People should go see it. Go see this film.
Fantastic. This has been Ruby Lovell in Hollywood at the Hollywood Takeover premiere. right here in the heart of Los Angeles.
The deal sort of fell apart.
It's just known in the industry, it's kind of like a silent rule, that if you say something against the regime, you will lose the opportunity to get your film into China for distribution, and you will lose the opportunity to get certain grants. Government grants will not support. A lot of independent funders will not support because they have business dealings with China. The CCP has such a strong hold over the entertainment industry.
And what's the fallout of all of that on our society and culture?
Well, the fallout on this is what happens with the perception that people have. That people look at this as being normalized and that they accept what China is saying.
How often do you see a story where China is the bad guy? You don't. Our media environment has caused just the whole perception of China, the reality, to be distorted.
People have been brainwashed, I mean, without knowing it.
Robert Downey Jr., he was the first movie star to really come over there and promote a film. And he was always intrigued by the East anyway. He's always been a studier of martial arts. You really want people to feel like this is a goal of yours, is to come over and really understand China and be a part of it. So he came over and we scripted pretty much everything that he said, at least on the onset of when he talked about, like, you know, China, I'm here, I want to be here, I've always loved this culture, I've always loved the people, I love the system of government you're under. This is where I want to be. Thank you for inviting me. I'm so proud to be here. That kind of stuff.
People who know me back in America know that I'm very interested in all things Chinese. I live a fairly Chinese life in America.
Well, Robert Downey Jr. is a professional in every way, so he knew the game that had to be played. He even ate, I'm forgetting the name of those like terribly bitter fruit with the sauce on it, like the big stick that he ate.
加长版的冰糖葫芦一端上来，食指大动的钢铁侠立刻如获至宝。
Hollywood Takeover 怎么样味道？这是糖画，好吃吗？这个。We just had lunch.
He would do all kinds of different stuff that culturally was relevant to China. He would say everything that we would want him to say. He would shake the hands of every Chinese government official that was there. By the way, we had Chinese government officials on all our sets too that were, you know, overseeing what was going on. It was a pretty intense situation because there was so much of a microscope put on this movie, like these two superpowers getting together to make the biggest movie of the year for Hollywood. It was there was actually almost too much attention put on it, and every step of the way we just sat there going, God, I hope we don't fail at this.
是春晚的小童星王一宁，能够和好莱坞巨星亲密接触，小家伙也是乐得合不拢嘴。